They say you should never meet your heroes. I think you should never hire your bodyguard to be your fake boyfriend. My name is Sarah, and tonight, a man I paid to pretend to love me took a bullet meant for my heart. And as I lay on the cold, hard ground, watching his blood pool around us, I realized one terrifying truth. He knew this was going to happen. It all began with a wedding invitation that felt like a personal insult. My ex-fiancé, Mark, and my former best friend, Chloe. The betrayal was a fresh wound, and they were rubbing salt in it. I wasn't going to be the pathetic single ex. I was going to be the one who got away, the one who upgraded. So I went to the most exclusive service I could find, not a dating site, but a security firm. That's where I found him, Kalen. His profile was a series of stark facts. Former Special Forces, sniper specialist, close protection expert. His photo showed a man with eyes, the color of a stormy sea, and a jawline that looked like it was carved from granite. He was intimidation perfected, and he was perfect. Our first meeting was in a quiet, upscale cafe. He was already there, sitting with his back to the wall, his gaze constantly moving. He didn't smile when I sat down. I laid out my pathetic plan. One night, a wedding, pretend to be madly in love with me. I needed him to be my human shield against pity. He listened, utterly still. And when I finished, he said only 4 words. It's a bad idea. I upped my offer to triple his rate. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, he gave a single sharp nod. I'll be your shadow, he said. Nothing more. The wedding was a surreal, beautiful victory. When we walked in, Kalen's hand on the small of my back, the entire room fell silent. He was a force of nature in a tailored black suit. I could feel Mark's gaze burning into us from across the room. Kalen played his part with a terrifying conviction. He would lean down, his lips brushing my ear as he whispered, a warning about a slippery floor or an uneven step, and to anyone watching, it was a lover's intimate secret. He never smiled, but his intensity was more convincing than any grin. For a few hours I felt safe, powerful. I forgot it was all a lie. But the lie ended the moment we stepped into the parking lot. The night air was cool, and I was giddy with champagne and triumph. You were incredible, I laughed, turning to him. You should get an Oscar. His eyes weren't on me. They were scanning the dark voids between the cars. The job isn't over until you're home, he said, his voice low and tight. I rolled my eyes. What? You think Mark's going to jump out of the bushes with a gun? The words were barely out of my mouth when a shadow detached, itself from a concrete pillar. The car smelled of blood and fear. I was driving one-handed, my other arm throbbing, my mind racing faster than the engine. Kalen sat slumped in the passenger seat, applying pressure to his shoulder, his breathing ragged. He'd refused a hospital. Too many questions, he'd gritted out. So I was taking him to the only place I could think of, my apartment. My safe haven was now a crime scene in the making. We stumbled through my door, a mess of torn fabric and drying blood. I pushed him onto a kitchen chair and fetched my first aid kit with trembling hands. The reality of the situation was crashing down on me. Who was that? I demanded, my voice shaking as I cut away his blood-soaked shirt. The wound was an angry, gory mess on his perfectly sculpted shoulder. You knew someone would try to kill us tonight. He flinched as I cleaned the wound, but his voice was flat. I knew it was a possibility. Your ex-fiancé, Mark. He's in deep with some very dangerous people. My hands stilled. What kind of people? Kalen looked up at me, his stormy eyes filled with a pity that made my blood run cold. The kind that don't leave loose ends. You, Sarah, are a loose end. Memories I'd tried to bury came rushing back. The last few months with Mark. The late-night calls he'd taken in another room. The foreign bank statements I'd found and foolishly confronted him about. He'd laughed it off, called me paranoid. I'd believed him because I wanted to. The financial records, I whispered, the truth dawning like a nightmare. He thought I knew something. He knows you saw something, Kalen corrected. And the people he works for. A syndicate we've been tracking for years. They don't take chances. I finished bandaging his shoulder, my mind reeling. We? Who is we? He didn't answer. Instead, standing up and moving to my window, peering through the blinds into the night. They know where you live. We can't stay here. Panic cold and sharp seized me. What are you talking about? This is my home. He turned to me, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his stoic armor. It wasn't fear for himself. It was fear for me. The man in the parking lot was a professional. He failed. They will send another. They won't stop. He walked over to me, standing so close I could see the flecks of silver in his blue eyes. You have two choices. You can stay here, alone, and wait for them to come, or you can come with me right now. And let me finish the job I was actually hired to do. I stared at him, my heart pounding. The man I'd hired for a silly charade was now asking me to trust him with my life. The fake boyfriend was gone. In his place was a lethal protector, a stranger who knew the shadows that were hunting me. I looked around my apartment at the life I'd built. It was no longer safe. The walls felt like they were closing in. Taking a shaky breath, I grabbed my go-bag from the closet, a habit from my chaotic childhood. I'd never shaken. Where are we going? I asked. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Somewhere they won't find us. As I followed him out into the dark, I had no idea that the journey would lead me not just into hiding, but into the darkest and most passionate chapter of my life. The safe house was a world away from my bright, modern apartment. It was a secluded cabin, smelling of pine and dust, filled with the ghosts of silence. Kaylin moved through it with a practiced ease, checking locks, scanning the tree line through the rain-streaked windows. The drive here had been made in heavy silence, the weight of what happened pressing down on us. The adrenaline had faded, leaving me cold, scared, and painfully aware of the man who was now my only tether to safety. He was a paradox, a man of brutal efficiency who had just taken a bullet, yet he moved with a predator's grace, his senses constantly tuned to threats I couldn't see or hear. I watched him secure the perimeter, his bandaged shoulder barely seeming to hinder him. "You should rest," I finally said, my voice small in the quiet room. "You're hurt." He didn't look at me, his focus on the window. "Pain is a distraction. I can't afford distractions right now." His words were like ice, but I saw the sheen of sweat on his brow, the slight pallor of his skin. The bullet had grazed him, but it had taken its toll. Later that night, the storm outside reached a fever pitch. Thunder rattled the old windows, and each flash of lightning threw the room into sharp, terrifying relief. I jerked awake from a fitful sleep, my heart hammering, convinced every shadow was an assassin. I found Kaylin in the main room, sitting in a worn armchair, staring into the darkness. He hadn't slept at all. "I can't do this," I whispered, my composure breaking. The tears I'd been holding back finally fell. "I'm not built for this. I design websites, I go to brunch, I don't get shot at!" He was silent for a long moment. Then he stood and walked over to me. He didn't try to hug me or offer empty comforts. Instead, he simply stood there, a solid, unwavering presence in the chaotic dark. "You are stronger than you think," he said, his voice low and steady. "Fear is normal. It's what you do with it that matters." He led me to the sofa and sat beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body. "Tell me about the files you saw on Mark's computer," he said. "Every detail." And so, in the middle of that stormy night, with the thunder as our soundtrack, I relived the final days of my relationship. I told him about the encrypted files, the offshore account numbers, the emails with cryptic subject lines. As I spoke, his intense focus was on me, making me feel like my memories were vital intelligence. He was no longer just my protector. He was my partner in unraveling this mystery. At one point, a particularly violent clap of thunder made me jump, and my hand flew out, accidentally brushing against his. A jolt, sharp and electric, passed between us. Our eyes met, and the air in the room grew thick and heavy. The storm, the danger, the isolation, it all coalesced into this single charged moment. His gaze dropped to my lips, and for a heartbeat, the professional detachment in his eyes was gone, replaced by a raw, blazing heat that took my breath away. He was the one who broke the spell, pulling back and clearing his throat, the mask of the bodyguard slamming back into place. "You should try to sleep," he said, his voice rough. "I'll keep watch." But as I lay back down, my heart was racing for a completely different reason. The fear was still there, but it was now tangled with a dangerous, thrilling attraction. The man sent to protect me was becoming a different kind of threat to the walls I'd built around my heart. And as I drifted into an uneasy sleep, I knew the storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing between us. The storm inside me had quieted, replaced by a cold, sharp resolve. Kaylin's trust in my memory had ignited something new. Not just attraction, but a fierce need to be more than a victim. I wasn't just a loose end. I was a key, and I was done hiding. "We can't just wait for them to find us," I said, my voice cutting through the morning quiet. Kalen looked up from cleaning his gun, his eyes wary. "We have to go on the offensive." I remember something else. Mark had a backup, a physical one. He was paranoid about digital trails. He kept a ledger in his office. Kalen's expression turned to stone. "No, it's a secured building. It's a trap. It's our only move," I argued, standing my ground. "This ledger has everything. Account numbers, transactions, names. It's what you need to bring them down, isn't it?" The silence that followed was an admission. I saw the calculation. In his eyes, the trained operative, weighing the immense risk against the potential reward. Finally, he gave a tight, reluctant nod. "We go in my way. You do exactly as I say. No arguments." The plan was audacious. We would infiltrate Mark's corporate office after hours. Kalen had skills I could only imagine, but he needed me to bypass the biometric scanner on Mark's private office door. My fingerprint, registered during our engagement, was still in the system. That night, the city skyline was a tapestry of lights, but all I felt was darkness. Dressed in black, I felt like a stranger to myself, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. Kalen was a ghost beside me, all silent movement and focused intensity. He disabled alarms with the device he pulled from his pocket, his movements economical and sure. "Stay close," he murmured, his breath warm against my ear, and the shiver that ran through me had nothing to do with fear. We reached Mark's office. The sleek modern space felt like a museum of my past betrayals. My hand trembled as I pressed my thumb to the scanner. A green light, a soft click. The door swung open. The air inside was stale, the ghost of Mark's expensive cologne still lingering. We moved quickly, our search frantic and silent. I went straight for the false panel behind his framed degree that he'd once shown me, boasting about his cleverness. My fingers found the latch and the panel swung open. There it was, a simple black leather ledger. And then the lights blazed on. "Looking for this?" Mark stood in the doorway, but he wasn't the confident man I remembered. He was pale, sweating, his eyes darting nervously, and flanking him were two hulking men with dead eyes and hands, resting on weapons beneath their jackets. My blood ran cold. "I'm sorry, Sarah," Mark stammered, his voice pleading. "They made me do it. They told me to lure you here." Kalen moved instantly, shoving me behind the solid oak desk. "It was you at the wedding," he growled, his body a coiled spring of violence. "You hired the shooter to make it look like the syndicate was cleaning house, to cover your own tracks. You're embezzling from them." The truth was a physical blow. The man I'd almost married had not only betrayed me with my friend, but had now tried to have me killed to save his own skin. The armed men stepped forward, and in that moment something in me broke. It wasn't fear. It was rage, a pure white-hot fury. As one of the men lunged for Kalen, I didn't freeze. I acted. I grabbed a heavy marble bookend from the desk and swung it with all my strength, catching the man on the side of the head. He grunted, stumbling back, giving Kalen the split second he needed to disarm the other. The room descended into a chaos of grunts and the sickening thud of fists meeting flesh. I was no trained fighter, but I was a fighter nonetheless. When it was over, the two men were unconscious on the floor, and Mark was cowering in the corner. Kalen stood panting, a fresh cut on his lip, his eyes wide as he looked at me. In them, I didn't see surprise. I saw awe, and something else, something that looked a lot like pride. He grabbed the ledger in my hand. "We have to go, now." But as we turned to leave, a new voice, cold and smooth as silk, echoed from the doorway. "I must admit, Mr. Thorne, you've led us on a merry chase." A man in an impeccably tailored suit stood there, a small, elegant pistol in his hand. He wasn't like the brutes on the floor. He was something far more dangerous. He was the real thing, and he was pointing the gun directly at Kalen's heart. "And it seems you've brought us the prize," the man said, his smile chilling. How very convenient. Time stopped. The man in the doorway, with his cold eyes and colder smile, was the embodiment of every fear that had haunted me since that first shot rang out. This was no hired thug. This was the architect of the shadows hunting us. And his gun was pointed at the man I realized, with a staggering, terrifying clarity I could not live without. "Alexander Croft," Kalen said, his voice a low growl. He subtly shifted, putting his body more squarely between me and the gun. "I wondered when you'd step out from behind your desk." "The ledger, if you please. Mr. Thorne, Croft said, his tone conversational, as if asking for the time. And the girl. She's caused quite a bit of trouble. In that suspended moment, a lifetime passed between Kaylin and me. I saw not a bodyguard, but a man who had fought for me, trusted me, and looked at me as if I were the strongest person he'd ever known. I saw the future I desperately wanted, a future with him, and I knew I would not let it end here. My fingers tightened around the cold, heavy ledger. It wasn't just a book of numbers. It was our lives. As Croft took a step forward, a predatory gleam in his eye I didn't think. I acted. "Here's your ledger," I screamed, and with all my strength, I hurled the heavy book not at Croft, but at the large window behind Mark's desk. The sound was explosive. The glass shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces, a cacophony that shocked everyone in the room. In that split second of surprise, Kaylin moved. He was a blur of motion, disarming Croft with a brutal, efficient move I barely registered. The gun clattered to the floor as Kaylin slammed him against the wall. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing rapidly closer. My call to the FBI made the second we'd found the ledger had been answered. The room flooded with federal agents, swarming over Croft, Mark, and the groaning henchmen. In the chaos, Kaylin found me. He didn't care about the agents, the broken glass, or the captured criminals. His eyes were only on me. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, his hands cupping my face, his gaze searching mine. "You are magnificent," he breathed, his voice thick with an emotion that shattered my last remaining wall. And then he kissed me. It was nothing like the chaste, performative kisses at the wedding. This was a kiss of desperation, of relief, of a promise finally spoken aloud. It was fire and hope and a future, all poured into a single soul-altering moment. I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, holding on to the solid reality of him, to the life we had just fought for. Weeks later, the headlines told a story of a major syndicate dismantled, a corrupt CEO exposed, and a key witness protected. But our story was just beginning. We were sitting on the porch of a new home, one filled with light, not shadows. The silence between us was comfortable now, filled with the peace we had earned. Kaylin took my hand, his thumb stroking my knuckles. "The job is over, Sarah," he said softly. "The threat is gone." I looked at our joined hands, then up into his stormy blue eyes, now calm and clear. "So what happens now?" He smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Now," he said, "we live. No more lies, no more hiding. Just us." He leaned forward, his forehead resting against mine. "I love you. Not because I was paid to, or because I was protecting you. I love you because you are the bravest, most infuriatingly stubborn, and beautiful person I have ever known." Tears of pure, unadulterated joy filled my eyes. The man I hired to be a shield had become my foundation. The fake relationship had become the most real thing in my life. "I love you too, Kaylin," I whispered. Sometimes the most dangerous beginnings lead to the most beautiful endings. Our story started with a lie, but it was built on a truth stronger than any bullet. That even in the darkest of times, love can find a way to shine, guiding us home. If this dark romance captured your soul, you belong in the shadows with us. Subscribe to Twisted Fame and hit the bell, because the obsession is just beginning. Our next story of dangerous love and deadly secrets awaits. Until then, remember, in our twisted world, love is the most powerful weapon of all.